So logic is our second to last unit that we're covering here in geometry. And what we're going to do is we're going to, unfortunately for time, we're going to kind of shrink down the amount of time that we're going to spend on logic. And we're just going to kind of do a condensed version of what you might need. The first topic that we're going to talk about is Venn diagrams. And it's not in the packet that you have. That's because Venn diagrams are going away. Remember how I told you that this is the last year for the 2009 SOL? Do you remember that, where the formula sheet says 2009 on it? You're going to take the 2009 practice on the test nav. And that's because the curriculum is changing a little bit. But your test that you take when you take it on May 2nd will have Venn diagrams on it, so we have to cover it, okay? So you might want to just, in the side there, make a little, in the margin, make some notes for specific to Venn diagrams. So I have 3 examples what Venn diagrams could look like. We've done one with quadrilaterals, if you remember. Venn diagrams are just the circle things, right? So how the circles relate to each other. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they're totally separate. So what I would suggest that we do is let's just talk about Venn diagrams in general. And there really are 3 cases of Venn diagrams. Okay? One case is that it looks like this. Okay? And what would you say about those 2 things? How many things in common do they have? None. Would you agree? Okay? So nothing in common. So this, you might see the word none written associated with that. You might have something written like this. Everything is in common. So all, a lot of times, is a word that you will see. All of one is included in the other. And then the other that we see is when sometimes they just overlap. And what word might you use to describe that? Some, okay? So these are kind of the basic 3 scenarios of Venn diagrams, all, some, or none, okay? All is often a special case because we can translate that to what's called a conditional statement. So let's just kind of use an example. All, I don't know, all, just trying to think of something that would work. All lemons are fruit. If you agree with that statement, all lemons are fruit. Okay? So how we could translate that to the Venn diagram is we could put lemons on the inside because all of the lemons should be inside the fruit. Does that make sense? Okay? We can also translate that to what's called a conditional statement, which has an if and a then with it. So, if it is a lemon, comma, then it is a fruit. Would you grab that for me? Okay? So if it is a lemon, then it is a fruit. Anytime the word all is written there, you can translate any all statement to an if-then statement. The if-then statement is very important for what we're going to be doing today. What follows the if is something specific, and what follows the then is something specific. This is stuff I would be writing down, folks, because this is important, okay? So we're flipping to C, which is like on the 3rd or 4th page in your packet, and we're talking about logic. But we're writing down, Is the if-then, it's on there. I just used a different example. Okay, sorry about that. But let's just go ahead and translate this to what you would say. So the hypothesis is what follows the if, and what follows the word then is what's called the conclusion. Okay, so you have hypothesis and conclusion. So it is a lemon would be the hypothesis, and conclusion is it is a fruit. Oftentimes we write this with what are called PQ form. Has anyone ever heard the word, the phrase, this is for old people, you probably haven't heard it, mind your P's and Q's?
Yeah.
Have you heard that? This is just the logic. Just mind your business, right? So this is kind of like the notation, the symbolic notation, and we'll get more into that in a few minutes for an all statement. Some and none statements are a little bit different, okay? But the all statements or the conditional statements are very specific, and we do a lot with those, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. But I've given you three scenarios, and this is something you can't write down, but I want you to, when I bring up the three scenarios, I want us to think about how the Venn diagram would look for each of these, okay? So let's look at the Venn diagrams here, and let's decide whether what three ways we're going to draw the Venn diagram, okay? So I'll pause the recording here for a minute, and maybe I can have each one of you come up, or not each one of you, three people come up and possibly draw the Venn diagrams that might go with each of these three scenarios. All right, so let's look at these three things, okay? All German Shepherds are dogs. So I kind of disagree with what number one says. Okay? So if we look at number one, are there other kinds of dogs besides German Shepherds?
Yeah.
So couldn't I put the other circles inside of the bigger circle dogs? Isn't dogs the bigger category?
Yeah.
So actually what needs to happen is you need to have dogs as the big thing, and what follows the word all, German Shepherds, goes here. Okay? So all German Shepherds are dogs. I can also have another circle, like let's say, I don't know, I have a bulldog, so we can just say a bulldog would go in here. If we wanted to. There's 100 different things. Who knows how many? We have mutts in there too, right? All right. But for specific to that particular statement, that's the Venn diagram that goes. Okay? Do we agree with number two? I do. This is what we did before. A square is both a rectangle and a rhombus, which means that the rectangle and rhombus overlap to give us the square. That's exactly what it should look like. Number three, though, I have some. I agree with the three circles, and that's the first step. Absolutely. We have world history, geometry, and biology, but because of the word some, we really need to make sure that those three circles overlap. So we have geometry, world history, and we have biology. Now, what specific people are we talking about that take all, which section of the Venn diagram represents the people that we're talking about in this scenario? The very, very middle. So when I say some people take all three, are we talking about that section of the Venn diagram?
Yes.
Okay. What if I said, who are the people that take both world history and geometry? World history and geometry. World history and geometry is this entire thing. Right? That's where the two circles for world history and geometry are. If it said world history and geometry but not biology, then it changes. If it says world history and geometry but not biology, then we're talking about just that. Okay? No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, so it's important. On the SOL, on the test snap, which I'm going to pull up here in a minute, that first question asks you to select sections of the Venn diagram that we're going to use. Okay? So let me pull that up real quick so we can look at that and try to answer that question. So you guys know TestNav can be done at home. If you Google TestNav, guys, please listen. If you Google TestNav, you can't access it at home. Just go to the Virginia. When you get this, when the states pull up, you're going to go to SOL practice items, mathematics 2009. Remember, you guys are the 9 people. You can practice using the tools, or you can just go right to geometry. We'll click start. You have to agree to the terms and conditions. We'll start. And we'll come back to this question because it's a logic question too. But here's our Venn diagram question. So let's read it. It says to select the box inside each region that you want to select. A star will appear in the box. I'm just going to, by the way, the pointer tool is my selection tool. If I click on these, stars appear. Okay? And so I'm just showing you what happens. And so I'm just going to unselect them to kind of show you what it would look like. The Venn diagrams represent a set of cell phones in a store. P represents the cell phones that take pictures. So, in other words, this entire circle here is all pictures. I represents cell phones that connect to the internet. And G represents cell phones that have games. What is this lonely box out here under the word cell phones? Nope. It doesn't do games, it doesn't do internet, and it doesn't do pictures. What kind of cell phone does that? Like an old school, like wood person's, like go phone or something, right? Huh? Is that what it's called? I've never heard of that. Wood phone. Okay. But it doesn't connect to the internet, doesn't play games, and doesn't take pictures. Old school phone. All right, let's keep going. It says for us to answer this question, Q-say, to identify the region of the Venn diagrams that represent cell phones that only take pictures and have games. So let's think about looking at the options we have.
Next to pictures.
So there's more than one thing you're going to select. Only means that it cannot be in the other circle, right? So in other words, it cannot connect to the internet. Both of these connect to the internet. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah.
So I know that those cannot be included in my answer. Only takes pictures and have games, and means it has to do both of those. So it must take pictures and have games. If it said or, wouldn't that work?
Yes.
Or means it can be either or, but because of the word and, that's the only correct answer. Are we okay with that question? You sure? Notice it lets me pick more than one, doesn't it?
It's tricky.
Okay. Keyword is and only. Only means it can't be inside the I circle. And the word and means it's between only, it has to be in both of the picture and game circle. Yeah? Okay. We'll come back to this in just a minute. What I'd like us to do now is look at what's in your notes. Venn diagrams, like I said, is something a little old. It's the last year we're going to test for it in geometry. Everything else that you see on here, we do have a couple of practice tests as well, Venn diagram questions. So let's go through some of the other things. Some other things that you will have to do in terms of logic is go in between what's called symbol form and word form. So make sure that you know what these symbols mean. This little tilde, a lot of times it's written in Spanish, or what other languages use a tilde? I think it's just Spanish, isn't it? Because French does the aigu and the other ones, but I think it's just Spanish. Anyway, it is the little tilde. It doesn't mean similar in geometry, doesn't it? So it means the word not. Sometimes you will see it written like this. Okay? But for SOL purposes, it will be a squiggle. Okay? If then, remember how we talked about that when we did the all lemons were fruit? If you're a lemon, then you're a fruit. This arrow goes in between. So the arrow means what's called a conditional statement. And it's an upside down B. It helps me remember because it looks like an A.
It's like an A.
Okay? V is or. And what's called a biconditional, we'll talk about what that means probably on Friday in terms of how it works, is double-sided arrow. Okay? therefore is these three little marks, three little triangular marks. Okay? It just means if and only if. I'm going to write that here. It means if and only if. I would write that down. That's not written on there, but that's what a biconditional means. And we'll talk about how there's like truth values and it relates to something called the converse, and there's all different kinds of things we can talk about. But we'll worry about that. Let's talk about the symbols first, okay? Let's just get the symbols now. So what I'd like to do is you look at your answer, you look at these right underneath. We're just translating in between symbolic form and letter form. So this is written right on your paper. So I want you to look at these letters and make sure you understand where the symbols are coming from. If you have highlighters or would like to borrow highlighters to kind of follow along with me, they're back there on the table, feel free. But this symbol here is because of the if-then. The arrow in between is the if-then. Notice the order of the letters, the S and the P. Notice it starts with S, which means I have to start with, I have my license. Does that make sense? You have to start with the one that it tells you to first in the symbols. And then when after the arrow is your P, in this case, I can drive. And then I have after the word then, I can drive. Are we okay with that? The basic key is the symbol arrow represents if then. I could also say all people that have licenses can drive. I can put the all in there if I wanted to. The next symbol is this guy. What symbol does that represent? And, right? So make sure that you look at your symbol and look at what it corresponds to in the word part. Okay? So symbols and word part. So you should be circling your symbol and what in the words it represents. In the third one, we have two different symbols. I think I have two different symbols. I have the little tilde, which represents the word not, right? I change it from I can drive to I can't drive. I cannot drive. And then the last symbol that you should see, I'll find a different color here. We have this symbol. Can you even see that? What the heck? Right. There we go. What symbol is that? That's your or, right? So you're just writing a sentence in that form. Okay? So let's try a couple of these to translate in between the symbols. Sometimes you're given the symbols and you have to write the sentence, and sometimes you're given a sentence and you have to write the symbols. So it's just a matter of which ones do we know. So, here's just kind of figuring out what goes with what. So I'm ready for spring, y'all. I can't deal with it. It's supposed to be 80 on Friday. Super, super, super stoked. Yeah, it's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be nice on Saturday too, I think. And then it gets cold. Yeah, like ridiculous. But whatever. It's like it snowed one day. We get winter, spring, and summer all in the same week. Welcome to the meeting. Kind of awesome. Anyway, so I'm kind of getting excited about spring, so I decided to talk about going to the pool and getting a sunburn. Why not? Okay? So what I'd like us to do is on the left-hand side, I want to put the symbols in. So can we think about what symbols would go with this? If I get a sunburn, then I went to the pool. So what letters and what order and what symbols go on the left-hand side? So I'm looking for P and Q. Do I start with P or do I start with Q? Lucas, what do you think? Good. So it's going to be Q. And then what's my next symbol?
It'll be arrow.
The arrow because of the if then, right? And then what follows that? Then P. Very good. Q, then P. I agree. Up here, I will get a sunburn. So these are given to us, right? And we're just kind of looking at our words and deciding based on what we're told P and Q are, what are the symbols that we're going to use.
I'd say
If I get a sunburn, that's how it starts. I started with Q. Then I will go to the pool, which is P. Yeah? Alright. Let's try putting it in words if we have the symbols. Again, we have an arrow, so doesn't that mean I'm going to be doing an if-then statement? If what? What does P say? If I go to the pool, and that little tilde means not, right? So then I will not get a sunburn because I went on a rainy day, or my mom is, crazy and makes you put SPF 80 on and a hat and 5 layers of clothes and a towel. Okay? How do we feel about translations?
not that good.
Not that good? Should we practice them a little bit?
A little confusing.
Okay. So what I'd like us to do is on your logic in your packet, I would like for you to look at questions, not all of them, because we haven't done inverse and positive. I would like for you to do number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. So we're basically going to skip 1 and 2. And we're going to start here. Okay? We're looking at symbolic symbols. Let's practice those. So I'm going to pause the recording for a minute. We'll skip 1 and 2. We'll come back to it. Probably on Friday. If you're watching the recording, it'll be next week. So let's look at symbols and Venn diagrams. Okay? So go ahead and pause the recording, and then go ahead and do problems number 3 through 7. So let's see how well we did. In problem number 3, when I'm trying to translate that, I have an if and a then, which means I'm going to have an arrow, right? So all of my answer choices have arrows, so that's good. Notice what it starts with. I see the word not. So the word not means I should probably have a tilde in there. Would you agree? Okay? And it's not complement. Complement talks about Q. So the one that starts with not Q is A. I really didn't even have to go any farther, did I? So that kind of helps me figure out where to go from there. On problem number 4, we have what P and Q represent. And then we're trying to figure out, again, I have an if-then statement. So in an if-then statement, that means I'm going to have these arrows, which I have every time. And so then I'm looking for what it starts with. Because it starts with this, a P. That was weird. Sorry. Because it starts with this, we're going to be starting with P. Can I cross those two out for me? Right? And then I'm looking at, it says Z is not rational. The word not is your clue, so what should the answer choice be? Good. How are we doing so far? Good. Symbols are not hard. All right, so let me just really quickly, before we go on the other ones, what would a symbol look like that has 2 arrows? Let me show you what it would look like. A parallelogram if it is a parallelogram, it is a parallelogram if and only if both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. So if this was P for parallelogram, and this was, I don't know, Q for opposite sides, the symbol form would look like this. Just wanted to show you that. Okay, the word if and only if does mean double-sided arrow. On Friday, we'll look at what that means in terms of what's called truth value and other things. But just wanted you to know what that symbol looks like in a sentence. In TestNav, real quick, before we get to the Venn diagrams part, let's go back to the first question that had the symbols. So when I look at this question, it's asking me to drag and drop these symbols in the right spot. So I want to make sure that I'm doing that. So we have what A and B are. Let's read the first sentence. It says that angle A is acute if and only if. Do you see if and only if in there? So what symbol is that? The double arrow. So the double arrow would be here. Do you agree?
Yep.
All right. What's the second one? What's the key word?
Or.
Or. So what is the or symbol? It's a V. So or. I don't have anything else. So or is, sorry, that one. Would you agree? And then what's the key word in the last one? There's two key words. Therefore is the three dots. And then I have the and. The and looks like an A, capital A, up and down B. So it would be therefore, that's true. That's a drag and drop situation using our symbols. This is one of the easiest questions to get on the SOL, right? It's not, just all you do is memorize the symbols. That's really all it is. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's look at the Venn diagram answers before lunch. Let's see how well we did. So, what do you think about number 5? What'd you get? B is correct. You don't get that one? So it says no dog owners own a fish. So look at dog and fish. Dog and fish do not overlap, right? So like if we took out that hat, they would be separate circles. Okay. How about number 6? What do you think?
B.
Number 6, I got B as in bullet. Okay. The word all, equilateral triangles, has to be the inside circle, right? And they're also, so when one is inside the other, that's the word all. All right, we got one more to do before lunch here. And, gotta cover up the wrong one. According to the diagram, which of the following is true?
B.
Let me see what I got.
B as the boy.
I got D as a dog.
Oh, B.
Look at the Venn diagram. Can't I get rid of all? Because in the all, I don't have one circle inside of the other. Would you agree? The sum makes sense because the sum looks like where the two overlap. Key words, right? All, no, or some. So sum really represents the picture that we're talking about here. Okay? So some students in homeroom belong to both. And if I was going to select the region that represents us are in both math and science, wouldn't I be talking about that guy right there? Yeah. That's the one that represents the kids that are in both. Good. All right, so what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to introduce some logic to you. This logic will take 2 days, because I don't want, it would take 1 day if we did all the whole period. But I want us to work on our passports, look at some review. So what we'll do after lunch is we will look at constructions, do a quick review of constructions, and then I would like us all to be working on the constructions practice. And then if you finish that, there'll be other things you guys can do in terms of the cards or other things. Okay? So after lunch, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Constructions first, and then we'll come back and do other things as well. So it's been a while since we've done these constructions, and so I'm going to do a couple of them with you before we try those on your own. So everyone should have their own compass now and their own constructions practice sheet. So make sure that you have one of each of those things. The first construction that you're asked to do is, in fact, bisecting yourself, make sure that your compasses have the little clear plastic insert on the, I don't know, the hole, right? I don't know what you call that. So that's going to be kind of like your pointer. The compass that I have up on the smartboard looks a little bit different than the compass that you'll particularly be using. But we're going to bisect this angle. Who remembers the first step when we're trying to bisect an angle?
Draw a line.
Not a line.
Where's the point?
Go ahead.
Put the pointer on the other.
So I'm going to put the point on mine. You're going to put the circle with the round dot, the clear plastic circle on yours. There's another sheet. Okay, and then you're going to make an arc across you're going to make an arc that crosses the angle. So we should all be doing as I'm doing it, okay? Just make a single arc across both. All the way around, just like I did. So you want your picture to look like mine. Okay? Remember to do these on a flat desk. Tom, put your phone away. Flat desk. Don't try to do them on a notebook. And sometimes it's easier to move the paper as opposed to the compass itself. Remember that whatever hole you pick on the slider, whether it be the hole that's close or the hole that's far, that's the one that you always use. I think we said to use the closer one. It's clean when we did these before? All right, so once you've done this, you've now created 2 new points. You're going to move your compass to those 2 new points. I tend to open it up just a little bit more, and you're going to make basically a little X out in the middle of the circle. So make your big arc first that crosses both sides of the angle, and move your compass to the new point, make an arc, and then you're going to move it to the other point, and you're going to make an arc as well. The goal is to make them so that you create an X or a new point out in the middle of your circle, and then it's just simply connecting, and you bisected the angle. Okay? So I'll do it one more time. I'm going to bisect the angle. So I'm going to take my compass, and I'm going to make an arc across the angle. And I'm going to take my compass, and I'm going to move my point, or in your case, the clear plastic circle, to the edge, which is here. And I'm going to open it up a little bit. You probably don't even have to do the open part. Move it out. We're trying to make an X out in the middle. Notice where I'm moving my compass to the other point, and I've made an X. Once you've created that X, that new point, I can bisect the angle. I would like to also show you on TestNav what the compass tool looks like. Because the compass tool looks a little bit like the ones that you're using right now. So once you've completed your bisect the angle, I'm going to pull up the geometry tools and we're going to bisect an angle. See if I can get one that will work. I'm going to try to find a question here. All right. So I know this question on TestNav is not asking us to bisect this angle, but let me go ahead and draw an angle on here. Do I have the compass tool? Give me 1 second. I can't see that far. Yes. Okay. So when I'm looking at this particular question, now we're in TestNav. So now we're in the SOL. And I want to, let's say, bisect angle Q. You understand my question? So I'm going to pull up the compass. Let me turn the lights out so you guys can see what the compass looks like on TestNav. It sort of looks like the one that you're holding. Would you agree? We have this particular slider, where you push the middle big button, I can make it longer, or I can make it smaller, kind of like your slider on your tool. And then if I touch this, I can make an arc. You see that? Okay? So it's kind of like what you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase. Can you let me erase? Yeah. So let's go ahead and come back to the compass. I'm going to slide it in. I want to bisect angle Q. So what I'm going to do, hopefully, it will let me do this. I'm going to make it a small. I guess it's not small enough. So let me just kind of, let's just draw a bigger angle. Is that okay? Let's bisect this one. It's just too small for me to do it. So I'm going to bisect that angle. Excuse me. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to make an arc. You see what I did? Just made an arc. And I'm going to go to my new point. And make it a little bit bigger. Make an arc out here in the middle. Come over here to the other side. And I'm going to make an arc. I see him. Wait a second. And then from here, come on, from here to here, I bisected my angle. It's a little messy because there are other pictures drawn on it, right? But I just wanted you to see what the tool looks like. Again, I'll just kind of erase these extra marks for a minute. And you guys can see, again, the compass is this guy right here. Open, close, move around, and then on this is when you can make your arc. Fair enough? You'll get to play with these on the laptops a little bit. All right, any questions about bisect the angle? All right, let's go ahead and try another one where you're going to bisect a side. Okay? So bisect the angle we know how to do. Do we know how to bisect a side? What did we say this morning or the beginning of class? What does bisect a side look like? I guess I didn't do it. I thought I did. Oh well. So let's just draw a triangle. Here we go. Okay. And I said, I think it was ABC. Okay, so ABC. And what side is it asking me to bisect? AB, right? Okay. So I'm going to do that with my compass. How do I bisect the side? What construction am I doing? Well, first of all, we have to identify what side AB is, right? Isn't this the side I'm looking for? I'm going to bisect or cut that one in half. I'm going to create a perpendicular bisector of that segment. So what you want to do is you want to open your compass, you want to put it on one of the endpoints, and what do I have to worry about the spread of my compass? More than half. So you want to make sure that your spread is more than half. So you should be following along and doing this with me. Find your segment AB, make it more than half. And then I'm going to make big arcs. Does this look familiar? We did this outside with sidewalk chalk. Remember that? Make a big arc. And then where am I going to go? Once I've made one arc, where am I going to move my compass? To the other endpoint, which in this case is B. And then I will make the arc. And then it's a matter of just simply doing the construction. Or combining, but going between the two X's, drawing the segment. Remember that the green and the yellow segments, if I bisected it, aren't those two, the green and the yellow segments, aren't they the same length? We cut them in half. We cut that big segment AB in half. How do we do it? Remembering this from a while ago. It's been a while, don't you think? All right, what's the next construction? Construct a line parallel to a line through a point not on the line. What do you think the first step is in the construction? Draw use a geometry word. What's that word called? It begins with a T. Transversal. So let's draw the transversal first. So drawing the transversal, doesn't really matter how you do it, just connect them. Draw your transversal. And then you're basically going to copy the angles. Remember, we're creating corresponding angles, and we know that if the corresponding angles are congruent, the lines are parallel. So we're going to go ahead and copy this angle right here. So we'll open the spread of our compass. We're going to make an arc. Then we're going to move down to our new point and also make an arc. So first step is draw a transversal. Then I make an arc. And then I don't change the spread of my compass, but I'm going to move my compass to my new point, slide it down, and I'm going to make the same arc. So I'm just sliding my compass around, put it straight down, and I made a new arc. And if you remember, we're going to be measuring how wide the original angle was. So I like to turn my compass around a little bit, because eventually I'm going to make a mark over here. But oops, that's the wrong thing. Take your compass, you're going to measure how wide. It's a little bit harder to do with the slider compasses. I'll turn one of the lights up so you can see maybe where the holes line up on your compass. But you're trying to measure how wide. You might have to slide your compass a little bit. And you're measuring how wide it is. And you just make a little mark. And then again, slide down and make a little mark. This is what before your final step, this is what your compass should look like. Notice my arcs. As I'm walking around, I'm seeing some different things. These two arcs look exactly the same. They should on your paper too. If they don't, you should erase and start again. Notice they're both to the right. One's on top of the other. They're both upright. Okay? Once I've measured how wide the original angle was, I'm now going to come down. In other words, folks, this angle I'm simply copying down here. That's my goal. I'm copying this angle down here. I'm going to put it in yellow highlighter, what I'm doing. And then I just connect my point, and those are parallel. Because these are corresponding angles, which guarantees that these lines are parallel. They're congruent. Yes, ma'am. How did I get this arc? This arc. I measured how wide from here to here with my compass. So I measured from here to here. I measured how wide it was. So in your compasses, you're going to use the clear plastic and the closest little hole, and you're going to take and spread your compass out so that each of those points lies inside of your compass. And then you're just simply going to make the arc. If you make your arcs too big, it might confuse you a little bit. I'm going to do it one more time. So if you are confused, watch one more time for me so you can see. Line, point. I draw the transversal. I take my compass. Oops. Take my compass. And I open it. And I make an arc across there. Don't make it too big. going to slide this down and make the arc again. They should be about the same size, not a whole lot bigger. Then I'm going to measure how wide it is from here to here. And then I'm going to slide down. I'm going to do the same thing. These two should be parallel. Okay? All right. If you look at the last three constructions, really are all very similar. They're asking you to draw perpendiculars to segments. So if you remember, they're all the basic one, the basic instruction. If I have to draw the perpendicular to this, we've already done that. We did that in the triangle up above. You're now going to do it again, just on a segment. Okay? So in other words, you're simply going to take your compass, put it on one of the endpoints, open it more than halfway, and make some big arcs. That's the one straight below the parallel one, folks. Straight below the parallel. You're just constructing your perpendicular. Straight below the perpendicular. I'm literally just going to do the same construction I did up at the top. Move my compass to the other endpoint. And then I connect them, and I'm done. Okay? There's my perpendicular bisector. So not only did I cut it in half, but now I bisected it. The remaining two on the bottom right are also perpendiculars. It's just that you have a point that it has to pass through. So it's the same construction, except for I have to create a little mini segment around the point. And then I do this exact same thing again. What I mean is this. If I have a point not on the line, before I can make my construction that I know how to do, I take my compass and put it on the point. I make a little arc on this side. And I make a little arc on the other side. Remember, those arcs are like sideways. You're like, hey, what's going on, right? What's going on? Or sideways. Then I use these 2 points, these 2 new points, and I do the exact same thing I just did. Move my compass to one of those, open more than halfway, and I connect. This should have to pass through that point. You missed the first step. If you don't do this first step, it will not work. You've got to create 2 new points on either side of that. It's real important. Without this, it will be wrong. When the point is on the line, I still have to do that. I have to create arcs on either side of that line first. Which means if I have my segment with a point on it, the perpendicular has to go through that point. So that simply means that I need to go ahead and make a little arc on either side of my, and to create 2 new points. And then I do the same construction as we did before. Okay? So I'm going to let you guys go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording. I want you to finish this. I'm going to go ahead. When you're finished, I will sign your passports and collect these. So if you're done with this, get your passport out and I'll come sign it for you.